Hey everyone, this is your English educator. I welcome you all to yet another lesson. Lesson number 10, titled The Great Stone Face, Part 2. If you remember in the previous video, the first part of this lesson was already uploaded. If you haven't watched it already, go watch it. Wherein we have completely discussed about a young man by the name Ernest. Alright, so without any further delay, let's begin today's lesson. The Great Stone Face 2. I believe everyone knows there was this young boy named Ernest who always wanted to meet this stone face because of this old prophecy wherein his mother told him that there'll be a man who will always who will come, who will have features, physical features resembling the stone face. Okay, so let's read. So now there'll be a leap. Leap means some number of years have passed. Many years passed. Ernest was now a man of middle age. To his neighbors, who never suspected that he was anything more than an ordinary and familiar face, he was only a humble and hardworking, though thoughtful person. Okay, so to his neighbor, he was, of course, a good person. He was thoughtful, hardworking. But what about the old prophecy that we discussed? Will it ever get fulfilled? So let us read and find out. Okay, so let's read. The years hurried on and brought white hairs upon the head of Ernest and made wrinkles across his forehead and furrows in his cheeks. He was an old man, but not in vain had he grown old. More numerous than the white hairs on his head were the wise thoughts in his mind. Alright, so basically the first few lines tells us that Ernest has aged, but then there was this grace and wisdom about his age. He had learned so many wonderful things. Okay, he had this wisdom which was never seen in him before. Alright, and Ernest had ceased to be obscure. So he was someone who had stopped to be obscure. He did not compromise to be little known. He wanted to be known. He wanted to spread the message that he had in his mind far and wide. Okay, so what will happen? How will he do it? Unsought for, undesired had come to the fame which so many seek. So there was this fame. He did not seek it. Some people are crazy for fame. They do this, they do that, alright. But then in this case of Ernest, he did not seek it. It kind of came to him. He had become famous beyond the limits of the valley. College professors and even the active men of cities came from far to see and converse with Ernest and received them with he received them with gentle sincerity and spoke freely with them of whatever came uppermost or lay deepest in his heart or their own. While they talked together, his face would brighten unaware and shine upon them as with a mild evening light. Okay. So, like I've said, Ernest had become quite famous. College professor from far and near would come and have conversation with him, and this conversation was so satisfying. They would fully be involved in talking with him, and while he used to talk to these people, there would be an unexplained glow in his face. He looked so amazing. There might be some resemblance with a great stone face, right? We never know. Let's read and find out. So all in all, it becomes so popular and his wisdom has grown. He's really come of age, we can say. So while Ernest had been growing old, God had granted a new poet to this earth. He too was a native of the valley, but had spent the greater part of his life in distant cities, pouring out his sweet music everywhere. Neither was the great stone face forgotten, for the poet had celebrated it in a poem. The songs of this poet found their way to Ernest. He read them after his customary toil, sealed seated on the bench before his cottage door. As he read, he lifted his eyes to the mountain. Alright, so a beautiful development takes place here as we continue reading. Alright, give me a moment, class. Let me take a pause here. So, as we read this line, we understand that as Ernest was growing old, there was this poet who had emerged on earth, and he was native of the valley, means he belonged to the valley. Okay, but then, unlike Ernest, this man was fond of writing poetry of the earth, discussing a number of things. So, one of his poems, um, you know, discuss about sweetness of nature. So, neither was the great stone face forgotten, because this poet happened to celebrate this great stone face in one of his poems, and then this great stone face was a sensitive topic for Ernest, right? He happened to read it, and then now something wonderful is about to happen. Let's read and find out. Let me zoom up the portion that I'm reading so that it's clear to you all. All right, class, so we are here. As you can see, oh great stone face. Can you see? I believe you can. Yeah. So let's read. Oh great stone face, he said, is not this man worthy to be your likeness? The face, this is a line from the poem, alright? The lines in quote indicate that these lines are from the poem of the poet we have just discussed now. So the face seemed to smile but did not answer. Okay. Alright, this is Ernest who said, oh great stone face, is not this man worthy to be your likeness? Okay, so the face smiled but did not answer. Now it happened that the poet, though he lived so far away, had not only heard of Ernest but had thought much about his character, and he also wished to meet this man in person. Alright, he also wished to meet this man whose wisdom walked hand in hand with the noble simplicity of his life. So one summer day thereafter, therefore, he arrived at Ernest's door, where he found the good old man holding a book in his hand, which he read, and then, with a finger between his the leaves, looked lovingly at the great stone face. So one day, this poet himself decided to meet Ernest, and as he was walking to the house of this man, what he found that Ernest was reading a book, and then he was observing something, and his eyes were kind of gazed upon the great stone face as this man came to meet him. Alright, which man are we talking about? We are talking about the poet. Okay, so there'll be some customary meet and greet here, as you can see. So he says, good evening, said the poet. Can you give a traveler a night's shelter? Gladly, answered Ernest, and then he added, smiling, I think I never saw the great stone face look so hospitably at a stranger. So Ernest was never getting over the great stone face. As he was looking and reading a book, this stranger came to spend the evening here, rather stay the night. Alright, so as he was seeking permission, Ernest said, I will happily do it, because I've never seen the great stone face so acceptable towards anybody else. So I am gladly inviting you to stay over with me for the night. Okay. So see, this is Ernest. Now Ernest has grown all right. He's quite old, and then this is the poet we were talking about. This is Ernest. Ernest was sitting and reading a book, as you can see, and then this man, who possibly is the poet, has come to take shelter at Ernest's place for the night. Okay, let's see. And on the background, you can see the great stone face, always smiling. Listen. And now the poet sat down beside him, and he and Ernest talked together. Never before had the poet talked with a man like Ernest, so wise and gentle and kind. Okay, so Ernest, on the other hand, was moved by the living images flung out of the poet's mind. So, all in all, two wise men were in conversation. This man were man of wisdom. So, the kind of exchanges they were having was world class, we can say. Okay, they were engaged in an engrossing discussion, wherein each man had his own fair share of discussion, fair share of wisdom to be shared. So as Ernest listened to the poet, he imagined that the great stone face was bending forward to listen to. It appeared to him that the great stone face was bending forward to listen to the conversation. He gazed into the poet's eye. So he looked into the poet's eye, and he would say something. He says, who are you, my gifted guest? The poet laid his finger on the book that Ernest had been reading. You have read these poems, said he. You know me, then, for I wrote them. So he gave his introduction. He said, you have read a number of poems that I have written. So I am the poet of those poems you have been reading for a while. Again and again, Ernest examined the poet's features. He turned towards the grey stone face and then back. He shook his head and sighed. He took a deep breath. He said, why are you sad? Inquired the poet. So Ernest looked little uneasy. He looked sad. So the poet, inquired the reason as to why he was sad. So Ernest replied, because all through all through life, I have awaited the fulfillment of a prophecy. And when I read these poems, I hope that I might be fulfilled in you. You hoped, answered the poet, faintly smiling. The poet was kind of expecting some sort of funny reply, so he said, you hoped. Alright. You hope to find in the likeness of the great stone face. I am not worthy to be its likeness. So he clearly declared that, I am nobody to be compared or to match any sort of greatness that the great stone face has. So I am not even near. Alright. So this was much to the to disappoint Ernest. And why not? Asked Ernest. He pointed to the book. Are not these thoughts worthy? He said, you have written such wonderful thoughts in your book. Why do you say that you are not worthy to replace the great stone face or to be the person the prophecy had always been talking about? He says, you can hear in them the distant voice of a heavenly song. But my life, dear Ernest, has not corresponded with my thoughts. I have had grand dreams, but they have been only dreams. Sometimes I lack faith in my own thoughts. Why then, pure seeker of the God and true, should you hope to find me in the face of mountain? So he clearly said, yes, I have done my fair share of work, but then I too have my days of own struggle. To compare me with someone as wonderful as the great stone face would be a folly. You should not do this, is what the poet told Ernest. Okay. The poet spoke sadly, and his eyes were wet with tears. So too were those of Ernest. They were both disappointed in some manner. Right. So at the hour of sunset, the sun was coming down. As had long been this custom, Ernest was to speak to a group of neighbors in the open air. Together, he and the poet went to the meeting place, arm in arm. So they were quite happy in a way because they were going to face the group of neighbors. Ernest used to speak with them regularly. So today, the difference will be the poet will accompany him. So from there could be seen the great stone face. Alright. So Ernest threw a look of familiar kindness around his audience. He began to speak to the people what was in his heart and mind. His words had power because they agreed with his thoughts, and his thought had reality and depth because they harmonized with life which he had always lived. He was a man true to his word, right? So far as we have studied, we have known that Ernest was hardworking, he was honest, and then he was a man of his word. So whatever he professed, he used to live it. He used to believe in them. So people always used to believe whatever he used to say. But today he looked kind of gloomy. It was not mere breath that the preacher uttered. They were the words of life. They were life lesson. A life of good deeds and selfless love was melted into them. Okay. So Ernest, as we have known, had grown into a man full of wisdom. So he was simply spreading it among villages, among neighbors, among college professor, you name it. Alright. So the poet, as they listened, felt that the life and character of Ernest were nobler strain of poetry than he had ever written. His eyes filled with tears, and he said to himself that never was there so worthy a sage as that mild, sweet, thoughtful face with the glory of white hair diffused about it. So, the greatness of Ernest was discussed by the poet. He was teary-eyed. He had never ever met a man who lived to true sense of what is being called greatness. Okay, so at a distance, but clearly to be seen, high up in the golden light of the setting sun, appeared the grey stone face, with white mist around it, like the white hairs around the brow of Ernest. At that moment, see, something magical is happening here. At that moment, Ernest's face took an expression so grand that the poet was moved to throw his arms up and shout, "Behold, behold! Ernest is himself the likeness of the great stone face." So, the great stone face that Ernest had been dreaming of to meet in real life was Ernest himself. At least the poet believes so, because the physical features of the grey stone face and Ernest at that point was matching exactly, perfectly. Okay, so see, as you can see in the picture, there is this starking similarity, right? So many people have gathered, so they must be happy. Now let's read. Then all the people looked and saw that what the poet said was true. The prophecy was fulfilled. But Ernest, having finished what he had to say, took the poet's arm, walked away slowly homeward, still hoping that some wiser and better man than himself would by and by appear, bearing a resemblance to the great stone face. So Ernest was so humble, so down to earth, we can say, that he still believed in doing work rather than bragging about the fact that he himself looked like the great stone face. So this story is abridged and is written by Nathaniel Hawthorne. Okay, so with this we come to conclusion. See, basically it's about a message. The message is simple. You will only achieve greatness with basics. It's not about looks and everything. You keep doing right work and then God will be by your side. People will love, respect, support you. The thing is, keep working hard. Great things will happen to you and your life. Okay, so let's take a quick look at the kind of exercises we have. Firstly, we have comprehension check. Based on your understanding, there will be some question. We'll quickly read and try to solve them. All right. Ernest's words reminded people of the wise old sayings. Yes, it's true. Total strangers from far and away who visited Ernest in the valley found his face familiar. Not always. The great stone face confirmed Ernest's view that the poet could be worthy of its likeness. No, it did not confirm, right? Then we have 4. When Ernest and the poet met, they respected and admired each other. Yes, they did. The poet, along with Ernest, addressed the inhabitants of the valley. No, the poet did not inhabit it. Rather, the poet told the people that Ernest himself was the great stone face because they were starking similarity. Right. Number 6. The poet realized that Ernest's thought were for far nobler than his own verses. Yes, he did, as he was speaking. Right. Now, walking with takes. Comprehension check based on understanding of the poem. Not poem, the story. There will be some question. How was Ernest different from others in the valley? He was wise, nobler, and as he grew older, there was this wisdom, unexplained wisdom, which he spread across people, across places. So, why did Ernest think that the poet was like the stone face? Because the poet's poetry were something wonderful. He had never heard such lovely poems, so that is why he thought maybe the poet had some quality resembling the stone face. Number 3, what did the poet himself? Number 3, what did the poet himself say about his thoughts and poems? The We have done discussion of the story, so you just pause back, read, try to understand, answer them. These are really easy, all right, class. So write earnest support against each statement below. So some statements are given below, precisely 10 statements. You have to write whether it's given by Ernest or the poet against each of them. Number 6, who by common consent turned out to be like the great stone face? Of course, Ernest, right? Did Ernest believe that the old prophecy had come true? No. What did he say about it? He wished that someone will come. Someday somebody will come, and then, he might be like the great stone face. Now, working with language, there are some questions here as well. Let's try to do them. See, mark the meaning that best fits the word or phrase in the story. Sun going down, brightening, spacious. So these are some of the exercises, and then there are more. So if you want me to solve these exercises and make a different video on it, suggest it in